Are dead. This was the quote from a recent Guardian article regarding the Chinese re-education camp. I found this story doing my normal figuring out the news that I go through Reddit during my live streams. And I think the irony here is that this came up on both r/conservative and r/liberal, so, you know, both sides of the aisles. Yet I haven't heard this story much in mainstream. Just for a brief summary on the Uyghur population, they're in China. They're a mostly Muslim population, and the Chinese Communist Party has been targeting them based on their Muslim religion, not looking like the typical Han Chinese, and not having a communist sentiment. I want to share a couple quotes from the article that I think are powerful and also link to some of the stories that we've been seeing in America lately. I think America's gone crazy. And I think part of us coming back together is recognizing how good we have it here and recognizing that part of what makes America great is realizing that every other place out there is 10 times shittier. So here we go. Thanks for joining. Like and subscribe. And here's the story of the youth. After getting captured, this is the story that the author gives. At this point, she's in the re-education camps and is going into the brainwashing procedure. After a few days, I understood what people meant by brainwashing. Every morning, a Uyghur instructor would come into our silent classroom, a woman of her own ethnicity teaching us how to be Chinese. She treated us like wayward citizens that the party had to re-educate. I wonder what she thought of all this. Does she think anything at all? Where was she from? How had she ended up here? Had she herself been re-educated before doing this work? At her signal, we all stood up as one. Lao Shi Hao. This greeting to the teacher kicked off 11 hours of daily teaching. We recited a kind of pledge of allegiance to China. Thank you to our great country. Thank you to our party. Thank you to our dear President Xi. In the evening, a similar version ended the lesson. I wish for my great country to develop, and I have a bright future. I wish for all ethnicities to form a single great nation. I wish good health to President Xi. Long live President Xi. Sorry, I'm not going to try to butcher names too much. Hopefully you can forgive me. I think we see a lot of the sentiment of, you know, almost like a mix between Nazism and like Soviet-style communism. We have a re-education camp based on nationality as well as political beliefs as well as going for this like unitary ethnic state. I think it's important to remember that this is the same Communist Party that has all of Hong Kong going on, and in their fight for democracy. From The Diplomat, we see on January 6th, with global attention focused on the messy aftermath of the U.S. election, the Hong Kong police arrested 53 prominent political activists, searched 76 places, and froze $200,000 of assets under the national security law. Those arrested were charged with subversion for the alleged crime of organizing and participating in the Democratic primaries for the postponed 2020 Legislative Council election, originally scheduled for September 2020. I think it's important here, as Americans, we get very frustrated in our own politics, but we have to remember to maintain some semblance of civility. The world is looking at what we do, and we need to make sure that we're true national pride, and even if you believe in like America first sentiments, means that we have to be the best, and that includes the best at civility. Going back to the original story, we see conversation regarding the transformation through education camps. Like I said earlier, this really resembles a mix between almost the Gulag and concentration camp. She states, in the transformation through education camps, life and death do not mean the same thing as they do elsewhere. 100 times over, I thought when the footfalls of guards woke us in the night and our time had come to be executed. When a hand viciously pushed clippers across my skull and other hand snatched away the tufts of hair that fell on my shoulder, I shut my eyes, blurred with tears, thinking my end was near, that I was being readied for the scaffold, the electric chair, drowning. Death lurked in every corner. When the nurses grabbed my arm to vaccinate me, I thought they were poisoning. In reality, they were sterilizing. That was when I understood the methods of the camp, the strategy being implemented, not to kill us in cold blood, but to make us slowly disappear. So slowly, no one would notice. it's hard. And I think what's really important to know here is how much power we see the Chinese market have. I think we remember earlier in the year how much was going on with the NBA and the defense of China there, because the NBA had to wanted access to the Chinese market, and basketball is pretty popular there. From this New York Post article, LeBron James may lecture others on the need to be educated on the situation in China, but he's the one living in a bubble. Despite making almost 24 trips to the communist giant, trips that probably earned him tens of millions of dollars all told, he seems to have no idea what kind of monster his paymaster is. The people of Hong Kong who struggle for freedom, LeBron prefers to ignore. No better. They understand that what the Communist Party of China runs across the border is not just a police state, but the first high-tech virtual prison whose goal is literally to monitor all of China's 1.3 billion people at a time. I think we need to be scared when we hear talk of the Truth and Reconciliation committees in the United States, whether this be as a result of Trump or the BLM protests. It's just a scary sentiment that we have here. In USA Today, they talk about how Canada has started a similar commission. Most commissions lack subpoena authority or the power to punish except with words. Some even offer amnesty in exchange for the truth. They produce painstakingly detailed accounts of past eras and events, along with a slew of recommendations. In Canada, nearly 3 out of every 4 calls to action from its commission have been carried out or are in process. Based on recommendations from its commission, Greensboro local government issued a long-awaited apology for its part in the shooting deaths of 5 demonstrators at the hands of the Ku Klux Klan, passed a recommended living wage for municipal employees, and finally approved a marker near the site of the shootings that used the word massacre to describe the incident. The name itself, Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, can mislead. Reconciliation between parties to lengthy and wide-ranging conflicts cannot occur in the absence of an agreed-upon truth. A Truth and Reconciliation Commission's effectiveness often hinges on whether it gives opposing sides equal chances to be heard and demonstrate impartiality as competing versions of the story are told. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission itself may be incapable of carrying out the work of both truth-seeking and reconciliation, but commissions have proven themselves capable in many instances of enabling and catalyzing it. I think where I'm getting at with this is, lately there's been a lot of talk about shutting up. You know, like, I've done a lot of work recently on censorship and how I believe it can lead to more radicalization rather than the less that's kind of implied. I think there's a really big point here that we need to make sure we're hearing the other side. Oftentimes, I'm in a position of critiquing authority figures, and this is both on the left and the right. You know, sometimes it's easier to critique one over the other. And when I look at both sides, I see that they're talking through each other rather than with each other. I conclude with a take from the original article from The Guardian on the experiences of what started the events that we see going on in China with the. My scared thought is that this is the same rhetoric being used throughout a lot of America now. I think it's time for us to stand up. I conclude. That wasn't new, but the despotism had become more pronounced since the Urumqi riots in 2009. An explosion of violence between the city of Uyghurs and Han population, which left 197 people. The event marked a turning point in the recent history of the region. Later, the Chinese Communist Party would blame the entire ethnic group for these horrible acts, justifying its repressive policies by claiming that Uyghur households were the hotbed of racial Islam and separatism. We see on both sides right now in the United States this claim that the other side is, doing horrible acts. I think it's time that we step back and try to get back to, finding the truth on the other side. Understanding that the other side is frustrated and they have every right to be. And this is both the left and the right. This is both blacks and whites. This is male and female. It's not a race problem. It's not a sex problem. It's a humanity problem.